Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Nkem Izamama, and I just want to say thank you so much for joining me tonight. This is going to be a really great discussion that we're going to have tonight. So, 2 weeks ago, I walked you through our due diligence findings at the park at Arlington. So, we went there, we went on site, we went to the property, we verified every single assumption we assumed, we examined every system, we confirmed that the 188 unit property in Georgia had the foundation for success. That was our goal when we went there 2 weeks ago. Tonight is a little bit different. Tonight, I'm going to show you exactly how we are planning to transform that asset from an already well-maintained property, but really thinking about it more from how can we start, how can we continue the cash flow machine that it already is, right? Like our goal is that we want to start being able to generate predictable passive income for high earning professionals, just like you on this call. Again, it's not theory, right? I'm going to show you the actual game plan, what we plan to do. I will walk you through the specific improvements, the timeline, the premiums that we're targeting, and most importantly, the strategy behind how this is going to help build wealth through real estate. That is my heart and that is my goal. So let's get started. But okay, before we jump in, I want to take a moment again to address this because it's very important, right? As accomplished professionals, you're sitting here, you're listening, and you're digesting all this information. That information that I'm sharing with you, it's exclusive for you. But I want you to take this opportunity and review it with the people that you trust the most. So maybe your accountant, your financial advisors, whatever that looks like, because that's what we sophisticated investors do, right? Go do your due diligence and then come back and say yes. But that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today, right? The idea behind our value add strategy. So before I dive into the transformation plan and what we're going to do, I want to tell you why I'm here tonight and why I'm speaking to you and why this is so important and near and dear to my heart. 6 years ago, I was exactly where many of you are right now, board certified emergency medicine physician, working a lot of hours, making great income, but really feeling trapped. I loved medicine. I loved helping patients, and I still do. But I didn't want that entire, I didn't want my entire financial future to be dependent on my 9 to 5, showing up to work every single shift, right? If I got sick, if I got injured, if I wanted to travel, if private equity took over our department and decided they didn't need me anymore, which actually happened, not to me, but then my income would disappear, right? That was a reality for me. And that was my wake up call. And maybe some of you are sitting here thinking, this might also be your wake up call. But I realized that as physicians, as healthcare professionals, as high income earners, right? We are taught to trade our time for money, and we're really, really good at it, right? But nobody teaches us how to make money, how to make that money, our money, work for us instead. And that's what I was fascinated about. And that's why I got into investing in real estate. I didn't go about buying single family rentals because maybe that required too much of my attention, right? I didn't have that time. My time is valuable. And so what I did instead was that I invested in apartment complexes, right? And I started by just investing 50,000, and something really clicked, right? That first investment did something for me. It showed me that I could own income generating, income producing assets without having to sacrifice my career, my family, my time, my freedom, right? I started to understand the concept behind building wealth while still practicing medicine. But what that did was it helped me create options instead of obligations. And so fast forward to today, with partnership with all our wonderful investors, Phoenix Capital has acquired and managed over $120 million in assets. And I still practice medicine, right? But now it's by choice, not because I have to. I work about 8 shifts a month because I really do want to. I still love patients and I get to do that. And that freedom, if you're sitting here thinking, if you're streaming from somewhere live, right? That's what I want for you. And that's why we're having this conversation tonight, right? The park at Arlington is not just another property. For you, it might be the first, vehicle that you can use to start thinking about switching from that employee to owner mindset, right? To think about like, okay, what is my active income doing for me passively? How am I using that to make money? And because you can choose that opportunity, you get to do that. And so that's a transformation that I'm going to be talking about tonight. But before I jump right into it, right, this is one belief that changed everything for me. And I want to just put it, like plant a seed, and I think it can change everything for you, right? Real wealth is not built by working harder. It's really built by owning assets that work for you. That's how the wealthiest of the wealthiest think about it. It's how can I own? What can I use the money that I've made to build for me? And so I want to explain what I mean by that. A lot of healthcare professionals, high income professionals, they still think that they need to work more hours to build wealth. You know, that looks like take more call, work more shifts, say yes to every opportunity, grind. And I think it's a little differently, right? Or sometimes they even think maybe they have to become landlords, right? If they start thinking about real estate investing, it might be that they need to become landlords. But that also feels like a second job, right? This is what I've learned. Um, it's not that wealth building, right, is not just more work. And that idea of having to do all those things, that is more work, and that's not wealth building. Wealth building really does happen when you shift your mindset, right? And then you start going from being an employee and you're trading time for money to start becoming an owner, someone who owns assets that will generate income whether you're working or not. That is the key difference. And a great way to make that shift is real estate investing. It's not the only way, but it's one of the ways that has worked. And that's what I'm sharing with you tonight, right? And the idea is very simple. You invest capital into professionally managed cash flowing apartment communities, and then you own a piece of a large institutional grade asset, quality real estate. You're getting quarterly distributions. You're benefiting from appreciation of the property while you're also benefiting from depreciation of the property through tax advantages, right? All of this, you're doing it without sacrificing your career or family time or freedom, right? That I would say is the big domino effect that we should understand, we should start accepting. And once you believe that wealth is built through ownership, there's a shift in your mindset, and that you start thinking about how you can use your earned income very differently. Okay, so now here's the meat and potatoes of what we're talking about today. I want to walk you through 3 secrets about what we plan to do with this investment opportunity, the park at Arlington. And we've done this in our other properties, but I use specific examples from this property based on due diligence. How are we going to increase the value of the property? That's what we're talking about today. And these are not random improvements, right? I want you to think about this as how we think about it, which is a systematic framework that we use across our entire portfolio. So each element is going to build on each other to create, reliable income, one that will appreciate in value. And then as we're thinking about, purchasing, we're also thinking about our exit strategy as well. That is also important. So the first secret is the interior transformation. So how do we go in and strategically upgrade units that will really command premium rents without over improving, right? You don't want to go in and do a ton of renovations and you're not going to be able to capture, that premium. So that's secret number 1, interior renovations. Secret number 2 is exterior enhancement. So the physical improvements of the property, right? It is going to protect your capital investment as an investor, but it's also going to want to make the residents stay. That's how we think about it. And then the third secret is the operational excellence. So the machine behind the business, behind the apartment complex, right? So the systems and the management, that's also just as important as the interior and the exterior. And that's really what turns good apartments into great investments. So I want to break down each of them for you. So I said secret number 1 is interior transformation, right? And this is where most investors or most owners, they either overspend or they underspend. And I want us to think about it strategically. From what I learned and what we learned as a team when we went to do due diligence at the park is that the units are in great condition. They're not falling apart, but they're also not commanding top of market rents, right? And so we're thinking that there's a gap between what the property is currently generating and what it could generate with the right improvements. Again, not overspending, not underspending. So our interior strategy is simple. We are not going to go in and we're not going to renovate every single unit to the same level, because that's going to be wasteful, because the current owners, right, that we're buying it from, they've already done renovations. So instead, we're going to do tier renovations based on kind of the current conditions that the property is in right now, and also how we can position it for, again, our exit. So some of the units from when we walked it about 2.5 weeks ago, right? Some of those just need cosmetic upgrades. So that looks like fresh paint, maybe a few new fixtures, and maybe flooring. That looks like a cost of like $3,000 to $5,000 to turn that unit. And turn in means like fixing it when the prior tenant leaves. Now that's on the smaller side. Now, some of the other units, which look like maybe about 30%, are going to need full renovation. So that means like we need to change out the flooring, we need to fix the lighting, we need to upgrade the appliances, fix cabinetry, all of that stuff. And that looks more like 12 to 15,000 per unit, right? But those ones will command higher premiums because we're going in and we're completely renovating it. So over like across the property, right, on average, it's looking like somewhere around $8,000 per unit to renovate it. And that's what kind of based on the research we did when we went there with our property management team, the contractors, the entire team 2 weeks ago, right? So that's based on kind of all of that walkthrough that we did and contractor estimates. Now, this is why you might be sitting listening, like, why does this matter to me, right? It matters to you as an investor because our goal is that based on those renovations, we're going to target around $125 to $150 per month in rental premium on those renovated units. And that's being conservative, right? We kind of did what we call comps in the area. So we looked at other properties in the area that have done renovations to where we're going to take it to and that are getting similar premiums. So we know we're going to be able to get that. We know that the market can support it. That's what it means when we're looking at kind of comparing the comps around. And this is the key. This is important. We are not going in day one and doing those 188 units renovations. We're not doing that. We're going to do it strategically as turns happen. So that looks like as a tenant leaves, like let's just say a tenant doesn't renew, right? Then we will plan and stagger renovations. So we're not breaking leases. We're not vacating a bunch of tenants to do that. It's just kind of the normal cycle of turn. When that happens, then we'll go in and renovate. Our goal is to improve the asset, increase the income, but still protect that capital. That's our goal. So I want to show you a specific example of how this looks, right? So right now, the park at Arlington, it has 88 of the units have in-unit washer and dryer. This is the problem, right? The property isn't capturing those rent premiums on those washer and dryers. And so they don't have a pricing system that differentiates like a unit that doesn't have washer and dryer and a unit that has washer and dryer. So everybody's kind of paying the same. That just means that we're leaving money on the table. We're going to fix this in two ways, right? First of all, we're going to properly price those units that have in-unit washer and dryer. And that looks like capturing like a premium of like $40 to $60 per month on those units. And then second, we're going to add washer and dryer to the remaining about 102 units, right? And the cost to do that is about $1,600 per in-unit washer and dryer. Again, that will give us that $40 to $65 in premium per month. So that's kind of the idea. And you could be asking like, why does this work, right? Tenants, residents, they want convenience, right? Nobody wants to haul their laundry to the common laundry room. No one wants anyone else touching their clothes. You don't want to compete for machines, like, and you don't want to be washing your clothes at 2 a.m. because you're like, well, this is the only time that the laundry room is empty, right? So our residents will pay for convenience, especially when it's not breaking the bank. So that's how we are thinking about those strategic value add plans. What are we going in that is going to make the residents happier, more comfortable, and our investors still capture a good return? Okay, so that was the interior plan. Now let's talk about the exterior. This is the exterior. Yeah, I want you to think about the exterior enhancement, exterior renovations in two ways, right? You want to protect your capital, and then you want to make sure the property looks like a place that people want to live, right? That's the whole idea behind what we're doing on the outside. And this is, again, what we found, right? When we did due diligence, the bones are good. The structure is sound, but some of the exterior work needs attention. So nothing is emergent, right? But if we don't address them now, they'll become really expensive problems later. So we want to address them right now. And so this is kind of what we're going to do. One of the things we're going to work on in the first year is the siding. So a lot of they use vinyl, and this is probably more than you want to know, but the sun exposure kind of caused them to warp. So we're going to be replacing those with like hardy plank, which is a little bit more durable, and it doesn't have the same effects. Heat exposure doesn't harm it as much as it did with vinyl. So we're going to do that, right? And then we're also going to paint. We're painting only where paint is needed. And when you see like fresh paint, it makes you think of well-maintained property. So there will be some painting that we're going to be doing. And then we're also going to, there's some window hardware issue that we saw. And so we're budgeting money to also fix that. We're not going to do the entire window because that's not necessary, but we're going to be kind of replacing the hardware around some of the windows. And so that looks like what will go after year one. And then year 2 and 3, we're going to do more amenity upgrades. So like the pool area needs some love. And I'm going to talk about that in the next I think in the next slide. But the pool area needs some love. We're going to be adding like package lockers as well, because Amazon deliveries is just a constant issue. So why can't we do something to make the residents happier? And then we're going to work on landscaping. So the total budget, right, looks like about 1.1 million, and then we built in reserves, like a just in case emergency on top of that, and that's like about an additional 200,000. So it's going to come up to about 1.3 in total. Now, before you think, okay, that's a lot of money, right? It's going to be spread over like the next 1 to 3.5 years. And with conservative budgeting, right? And we're still getting bids from contractors, that is probably going to go down. But the things that all of these improvements, they do 3 things, right? They protect your capital because we want to fix small issues so they don't become big. And then it makes the property look really attractive, right? So that we're always thinking like, how can we retain residents? It is cheaper to retain a resident than to get a new resident because there's less turnover. So that's kind of how we're thinking. And then the third thing is we're doing all of this stuff to position ourselves for exit because we want to hold it for the next like 5 to 7 years and plan to exit it. That is kind of how we're thinking about that. And then this slide is a little busy, but this is a little bit more detail into the amenity upgrades. So it's called the park at Arlington because there's this park in the middle of it. It's about 10 acres, right? And we want to do something with that. It's not utilized at all. It's just like open grass. So we want to kind of change that. So that's an amenity that we're really thinking about. And it's really pretty. When I saw it, like the leaves were changing. It was just a beautiful place in the middle. And we're thinking about what to do with that. And I'll share that with you in a second. But that old laundry room I talked about, right? If we put in unit washer and dryers, we're going to change that to package. The package locker will be around there, and probably some sort of pet station will also be around there. So that's what we're thinking to do with that space. A lot of residents own pets, and so why not kind of help them, give them what they need in that area, and also be able to capture some other income that way as well. And so that green space I talked to you about, right, that park in the middle, we're thinking about maybe like there's some gazebos around there. We want to make those better, maybe add some grilling stations, some additional seating. And then if we really make that area really nice, right, the apartment complexes who have that view that get to see the park, we can maybe charge a little bit more for like that park view or the lake view. So that's something to think about, right? As we're thinking, so like a resident would rather stare into that view as opposed to the parking lot and maybe pay a little bit more. And then the pool area, we're going to upgrade that as well. So like built-in grills, fire pits, just thinking about ways to enhance what's already there. These aren't just like cosmetic improvements. Again, we have to start thinking about it as an investment, right? Resident satisfaction, which will help reduce turnover. And also we want to justify the rent premiums, like that increase in rents that we're going to be bringing in. So that's that. And then the last secret this is important. It's operational excellence, right? This is where the magic really happens, right? You can have the best looking inside, outside property. But if your operations are weak or if they're poor, you're not going to get the returns, right? So this is kind of our strategy that we're thinking about, that we plan to implement at the park, right? So we went there, we interviewed, in addition to our property management team, the existing on-site management team. So that's like the front desk, the maintenance guys. We interviewed them, and they know the residents, they know the property, and they know the market really well. And so we plan to retain them. They're great, they're competent, they're professional, they're running the property well. And so we plan to keep them. And then we also, talked a little bit about the dynamic pricing, but we're going to create separate unit types for the renovated units. And so, and the reason why we want to do that is so that they can maintain their premium even when rents fluctuate. So like as market rents are changing, right? If we have dynamic pricing, that's going to be really helpful. So those in-unit washer dryer, the park views, the renovated units, all of those, right, will have dynamic pricing. And I think that's going to be really important from an operational standpoint. And then we want to, I keep talking about like kind of exit, but we want to maintain a a proactive maintenance culture. That means before something goes wrong, right, we want to be aware of it. We want to prevent it. That is so important. So we don't want to be reactive. And that's kind of how we're thinking about from an operational standpoint, right? I talked to you about resident retention. We want to create resident retention program. This is so important because every time a resident or a tenant leaves, right, to turn that unit, it costs about 2,000 to 3,000. So it is better for us to do all that we can from an operational standpoint to keep a resident, a good resident, keep that resident happy, than to go and look for a brand new tenant. And then finally, right, we really we're going in to, and then our plan is to maintain very tight financial control and discipline. So we want to be transparent. You will get regular updates as an investor. No surprises, very full transparency. This is what we're thinking about from an operational standpoint. And this is what turns a really good investment into a really great one. So my screen went away. Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, so this is what, when we look at all the three secrets, right, this is what we want to do, and this is what we're going in, and that's what I want to share with you, right? We're looking at interior transformation, we're looking at exterior enhancement, and then operational excellence. So that's, those are the things that we're going in and we're going to fix. All of that is kind of stacking on each other. This is how you take a $33 million property and then you significantly increase the value in the next 5 to 7 years. So I told you the first one is the interior renovations. We're going in and we're going to renovate in order to command rent premiums. And that means we're going to increase rent on those renovated units by anywhere from $125 to $150 per month per unit that is renovated. That is all going into the bottom line, which is the net operating income, and that affects the value of the property. So when we increase the value, right? When we do renovations and increase the rent premium, we're at the end, we're increasing the value of the property over time. And then the layer 2 is that washer dryer, right? So we're increasing premiums on those. And that's going to bring in about an additional $80,000 per year into the net operating income. And then we talked about the view premiums. So that's another layer, right, that we're adding. Again, we're always thinking, and this is like just the pure income increase with like zero additional capital investments, because we're not putting a ton into really enhancing that park. And then, so that's inside. Now the outside is kind of making sure that we're improving all those deferred maintenance. So we're not letting anything kind of slack. And all of this is to increase resident satisfaction because we want them to stay, right? Less turnover, less turnover, less turnover. And then the last kind of layer is the operational excellence. And the goal is like, how can we, again, reduce turnover, maximize rent collection, and then run the property efficiently. That's because when we do that well, at the end of the day, the goal of all of this is to drive the net operating income, which is going to drive the value of the property because we want to increase that. That's how we should be thinking about kind of building wealth from owning real estate. Okay, so what does all of this mean to an investor, right? This plan, why do you care about it? You care about it because returns, taxes, and really peace of mind, right? So first, you're going to be getting quarterly distributions. So from day one, this property is already cash flowing. So you're going to receive quarterly distributions that will start first quarter after financials, and that will grow over time. And I showed you exactly how that's going to happen, right? How are we going to capture those rent premiums? I walked you through those three secrets, which is really the three big plans that we're going to go into implement. So that's the first one. Secondly is tax advantages, right? as an owner of this property, you'll benefit from depreciation, which is also including bonus depreciation. So all of that you're getting at year one. And this can offset really tens of thousands of dollars, especially for our high income earners, right? Now, that number looks different for each investor. So you're going to have to discuss this with your accountant, and exactly what I told you in the beginning. But the goal of all of this is, especially those in the top brackets, right? How can you decrease your tax burden? This is a great way. And then the third one is appreciation. Why is this important, right? When we exit in 5 to 7 years, right, you will be able to capture all of the appreciated value through what we just went over. How exactly are we going to do it? I shared that with you, right? It's not speculation. We're not timing the market. We're going in with really, truly actual improvement plans as to how we're going to increase the value of this property. And this is a glimpse of what financial freedom looks like, right? This is truly passive. You invest, and then we do the work. You don't have to. And that's how you have to start thinking about, how can I build wealth? What does that look like? Okay, so I just explained the strategy behind how we're going to create value, right? I want to tell you a little bit about the investment opportunity. You know, the name is called Park at Arlington. It's 188 units in Covington, Georgia, and it was built in 2001. For those of you, I know a lot of you on this call have reached out and said, when is the next opportunity? You're already interested. You've kind of watched maybe a webinar, you've seen something about it, you've seen the deck, and you're ready to go. Our team is going to drop the link to the portal. It's a secure investment portal. Go in there, create your link, create an account, and then a member of the team will reach out to you and we'll touch base with you. We'll kind of figure out how this aligns with your big investment goal, and then we'll get you into the deal. Okay, I want to give you quick specifics about the opportunity, and then I want to save some time for questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat, and then I'll get to it as soon as I'm done. So again, I said it's 188 units. We're acquiring it for $33 million. It's in a very solid submarket, and that submarket is really benefiting from Atlanta's continued growth. It has job growth, population growth, and limited new supply. So not a lot has come into the market. So that's exactly what you're looking for in where you want to buy, especially if you're now like really looking into real estate. The property is currently 94% occupied, and that's great. But there's room for, again, operational excellence and operational improvement, which is something that we talked about today. But, we're going to go in there with better pricing, renovations, and then activate some of those amenities that I talked about. That's kind of the idea behind what we're doing and how we can make the property better. So now this is kind of what really gets me excited, right? The property itself is solid. It's doing well. It's not distressed. And people want to live there, right? The fundamentals are working really well. And our goal, again, is to go in and to improve what's already working. So that's kind of the first step. And then the layer in the market, right? In Covington, there's a ton of kind of economic drivers in the area that are coming within the next 12 to 24 months. So Rivian is building a massive EV plant that Covington is going to benefit from. Facebook, Meta, their data center is already operational, and they're already benefiting from that. Let me just put some numbers. That looks like billions of dollars like in investment that's creating thousands of jobs for, Covington and the surrounding area. And so, with those jobs come people need a place to live, and the Park at Arlington is that place. So that's a growth piece that's attached to it, right? Now, you're like, okay, why do we love this deal so much, right? Because of all the kind of fundamentals and the layers that I've already touched on, but we're buying, a quality asset that is already working, and it's in a market that is about to explode in the next 12 to 24 months. And then I kind of showed you today a very clear value add plan, right? That the sellers have already proven, and we're going to continue that and even enhance it and make it better, right? And so that kind of shows you a little glimpse of why this is a great market, and why we're really excited to want to purchase in it. And if you remember, the Rise, which we closed a few months ago, is also in Covington, and that is doing really well. And so kind of also thinking about from an operational standpoint, now having two properties in the same area. But now a lot of investors are asking, well, okay, what am I going to get, right? So cash flow is going to look anywhere from 6 to 10% every year, and that's going to be paid quarterly. So that's real money that's coming into your account. on a quarterly basis. And I talked to you about tax benefits, right? For every $100,000 invested, it looks like about 45%. And this is again dependent on your this is dependent on each person's investment, and it will vary by investor. So this is another conversation that you have with your accountant to kind of see how you can benefit from depreciation. And then based on everything that we've talked about, right, appreciation. So as we execute the renovation, as the jobs arrive, as the market is growing, right, conservatively, this property is going to appreciate in value between anywhere from 15 to 25% over the next 5 to 7 years, which is how long we plan to hold it for. And so the returns overall, your annually average, you're going to be making anywhere from 15 to 17.25%. And that's conservative. And if we go in and do all the renovations and all the plans and the value add strategy, right, that could look like more. Okay, so I want to share with you, and as I wrap up, and I'll be able to leave some time for questions, I want to share with you what we've been able to accomplish with our investors on this call across the country over the last 3+ years. We have acquired and invested 120 million in assets, and that is across a little under 600 units. And we have executed this same value add strategy successfully on multiple properties. So we know what works, right? And we don't do this alone. We do this with our property management team. We know what works. We know how to protect your capital with the goal to pursue strong returns for you. Our approach is very conservative. The underwriting is very defensive, right? We assume things will go wrong because they always go wrong. And so we plan accordingly. We underwrite very conservatively, but we know that nothing ever goes according to plan. So we always put that in to all our underwriting. So I'm not showing you kind of best case scenario where everything works perfectly. What I am showing you is kind of realistic scenarios, but there's a lot of built-in buffers because I know that not everything goes according to plan. And then the whole idea as to why this works is really operational discipline by having really solid property management partners, really tight financial control. So making sure that like our goal is to increase income, to decrease expenses, and then having like a really proactive system that catches the problems. And so we are actively meeting with our property management team so that the problems don't become expensive. Our goal is not to wait for disasters, it's to monitor, adjust, and then really optimize. So that's the goal. And the most important thing is that we operate with an investor first mindset. I think this is so important, is that your capital is treated exactly like our own, because in most cases it is. Like we as the ownership team invest in every single deal that we sponsor, that we bring to our investors. So if I'm asking you to put your money into this property, I'm putting my money right alongside yours. And I think that's very important. You're going to get full transparency. So regular updates, that looks like monthly updates, quarterly investor calls. You get direct communication from me when you have questions, no surprises. And we tell you, I tell you good, bad, ugly. When things are going well, when things are not, you'll hear all about it. And the reason why is because I built Phoenix Capital as a physician investor, and I wanted to create this kind of opportunity that I wish that I had access to when I first started, right? And I understand the value of your capital because I worked very hard. I worked, hard to earn every single penny, and so I know how important it is. And that's why my heart and my goal is to protect that, is to protect it, to grow it, and then to help us build wealth from a generational standpoint and think about legacy through real estate. Because if everyone else is doing it, so can we. So I want to bring this home as I wrap up and open up for questions. My goal tonight was to show you how and why real wealth is built through asset ownership, not just earned income. Earned income will only get you so far. When you start thinking about ownership, that's when you really think about building real wealth. I spent time kind of talking you through the 3 secrets about how we're going to transform our apartment properties. So interior upgrades, exterior enhancements, and then operational excellence with the goal to maximize cash flow. That's kind of the big picture at the end of the day. And I also spent time kind of giving you our specific transformation plan for the park. And our goal is to improve the net operating income again, so that we can increase the value of the property. And what this creates for you as an investor, right? Quarterly cash distributions is going to start first quarter, and then it's going to grow over time. And then also thinking about tax advantages through depreciation, and then appreciation that is captured throughout, the whole period while we're holding and managing the deal. And then at exit, right? All the value we've created, we're going to get it at exit. And at the end of the day, the goal for you is thinking, how can this really be a passive investment opportunity where you own the asset, but you don't manage the operations? That's kind of what I've helped you see today. And as we go through this series of how we start acquiring it, due diligence, our value add strategy, our plan, and then, when we finally acquire, what that looks like. So if this aligns with your wealth building goals, then these are the next steps. Again, my team is going to put up a link on the screen. Click on it. It'll take you to the portal, create an account, and start the process. And then we will review everything. And so when you're in there, right, you have access to all the financial statements. You have the operating agreement, the private placement memorandum. You see kind of the transformation plan, the return projections, all of that you have access to. And the goal is so that you can make a solid, informed decision. And then if it looks like a good fit, right, we'll reach out, schedule a one-on-one with me. We're going to discuss your specific situation. We'll talk about like your timeline, your wealth building goals, and whether this makes sense for you. And if we are aligned, right, then we'll move forward with securing the investment, and then you'll be officially invested in the park. So it's you don't commit until you wire. So just go into the portal, sign in, create an account. We'll reach out to you and we'll take it from there. So our plan, I've had this question from investors, like, what is the plan? So our plan is we're going to close in January, and then renovation and kind of our plans will commence sometime around Q2 of 2026. And after we kind of stabilize the acquisition, after we kind of everything is handed over to us, and then that stabilization plan is going to be continued for the next like 2 to 3 years. And our plan is to exit at anywhere from year 5 to year 7. I get this question asked a lot, so I always want to try to bring it up. You can invest with cash, right? But that's not the only way you can invest. You can also invest with an old 401k or an IRA. And all you have to do is convert that to a self-directed IRA. And we have a custodian that can walk you through the whole process. So if that's something that you're interested in using, click the link, and then we'll be able to get a hold of you and have that conversation with you. You have options, and I want to make sure that you are aware of that. And that's kind of why you're here, why you're listening to this, is there's not only one way to do it, there are other cool, creative ways. Okay, so as we wrap up, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate that you're thinking about wealth building, about diversification. You're thinking about it very seriously, and you're looking at different opportunities instead of just hoping that your W-2 income is enough, right? Because it isn't. And I appreciate that you understand the power of ownership, right? That real wealth isn't just built by working harder. It's built by owning assets that work for you. And that's why you're here tonight. That's why you're listening, and that's why you're listening to the recording. But that is what we're offering here, right? And that's what the Park at Arlington represents. And that's what Phoenix Capital has built to deliver to professionals just like you who's listening to this. So I again want to say thank you for being here. I would love to answer any questions. So if you have any questions, toss it in the chat. I will be able to answer that. But I just again want to say thank you for your time this evening. Great question. I have, okay, great. So the first question says, what are the investment tiers, minimum investments? Great. We have 2 investment tiers for this investment. We have a Class A and Class B. So Class A investor, that looks like someone who wants cash flow early. So you don't want to, you say, hey, I want all my returns kind of earlier on. I want more cash flow. I don't really care about profit at the end. So the appreciation at the end doesn't really affect me. I just want more cash flow. So that looks like 10%. So minimum investment for that is 100,000. And that looks like you'll be getting 10% every year on your investment. Class B are more of the investors who say, okay, I want cash flow, but I don't rely so much on cash flow. I also want profit at the end. So that looks like you will be getting about 17.25% on your investment. The minimum investment for that is 100,000 as well. But I know that that the person who asked this has, if you are thinking about investing, and I've gotten questions from investors who have said, are there additional monies that I can bring in and maybe not the 100? So if that's you, just reach out to our team. We will be able to have that conversation with you and just figure out maybe where you can come in at. The next question, is there a deadline for fund transfer? This is a great question. It's first come, first serve, and so you are not in it until you wire your funds. And so we have a certain amount of capital that we're raising. As soon as we hit that amount, we will close the investment opportunity, and you will not be able to invest in this deal. So our goal is to try to have all the monies raised, but it's first come, first serve. But the deadline is when we close, which is going to be in January. Any other questions? These are great questions. Okay. If you have any other questions, okay, someone else is writing a question, so I'll hang out. Great. Oh, thank you. Okay. You're very welcome. Oh, everyone's saying thank you. Okay. So if there are no other questions, we will wrap up. I want to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining. For everyone who joined, thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening.